So, I was going to talk about WandaVision, but I feel as though like everyone has done a review on it. I did want to do something different, so instead, I was going to talk about the X-Men and how they should be introduced into the MCU. The X-Men are some of Marvel's most interesting and some of their most complex characters. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and made famous by Chris Claremont, the X-Men have been some of Marvel's controversial characters when looking at storylines like Avengers vs. X-Men and the House of M. However, when it comes to their films, they haven't really been comic book accurate, going for a more realistic take with the black leather suits and the focus on more mundane characters with mundane powers. So when Disney acquired Fox back in the late 2010s, it was sort of a shock as the MCU had Marvel's Merry Mutants back. I feel as though that when the X-Men were further down the line with their movies, there was a kind of decline in quality. They went from being the juggernauts of cinema to lackluster blockbusters that everyone groaned and rolled their eyes at. I think shying away from the comic book accuracy is where the X-Men went wrong, because of the fact that they focused too much on one character, Wolverine. I feel as though that it wasn't really a team, it was more like Wolverine and the people that he hangs around with, instead of a superhero team that stood for an allegory of discrimination. I think now that the X-Men are back, I feel as though Disney can really reach into that. Obviously, there have been runaway successes like Deadpool, Logan, and X-Men First Class, but I feel as though acquiring knowledge of what makes the characters so special is something that can bring the X-Men back into the forefront of cinema. So, who do I think should play the Marvel mutants, and who should be on the team when it comes to saving the MCU? Well, first off, I always think that Jean Grey should be on the team, and she should be played by Kayla Compton. If you don't know who Kayla Compton is, she plays Allegra Garcia on The Flash. She has a sense of sensibleness and also emotional connection that she has with the audience. She very much is her own independent self, but also doesn't shy away from relying on the team from time to time in The Flash. I really think that's what Jean Grey is. She's the heart of the team, but also she can always go off carrying stories like the Dark Phoenix and the Wolverine and the X-Men. Next up is the blue hairy fuzzball that is Beast, and I think an actor like Tyler Alvarez should play the Beast. If you don't know who Tyler Alvarez is, he is most known for American Vandal. I've chosen Tyler because of the fact that his character in American Vandal has a sense of quietness, but also a sense of rambunctious aggression. He, of course, is nerdy and mild-mannered, but like Beast, if anyone threatens him or if anyone messes with him, he will use violence as a last resort. I think Beast himself does want to be a pacifist, but when time comes around, he does have to use his more animalistic tendencies. Also the fact that I think Tyler can play intelligent characters as well as characters that have a little bit of swagger to them as well. Nicholas Hoult played Beast with a sense of nerdiness, but I've always thought that Beast could have a little bit of coolness to him. Playing Professor X would be Jeffrey Wright. Of course, Jeffrey Wright isn't a Caucasian male, as many comic books have displayed Professor X, but I think that there's a sense of intimidation with Professor X. I mean, he can read people's minds and access anyone's mind and do whatever he wants with it. I mean, if that isn't scary, I don't know what is. But I think that there's a sense of, wisdom that he can convey when teaching the kids how to control their powers and to work better as a team. Headlining the field team, which I think would be a brilliant character to focus the new franchise on, would be Cyclops. And I really think that just looks based would be Freud Gutierrez. He is an actor, and just by looking at him, he is the epitome of Scott Summers. I mean, he is the human version of who I see in the comic books. Scott Summers, I think, was really sidelined in the X-Men films, which is okay, but I feel like, Disney has this time to show how cool Scott really is. Playing the goddess of the weather would be Black Lightning alumni Nefessa Williams. Now, I've always seen her as Storm instead of Thunder. Obviously, Nefessa is significantly older than all of these actors that I'm choosing to play the main team. And I think, like X-Men Evolution, she would be Professor X's right-hand woman. She has a sense of beauty to her, but also a sense of confidence that would outmatch any of the team. I mean, she could guide the team, guide any of the students in the Xavier Institute, and I really think that it would be a treat to see a character of colour be brought to light in a role of power instead of a role of just being a sidekick to one of the team. Next up is one of the most underrated X-Men in history, and that is Angel. I mean, he hasn't got the most interesting powers, but I really feel like you could tell some interesting stories with this character because of his confidence and his wit. And I really think that someone like Joshua Bassett would be really good at playing him. Obviously, Angel sometimes has a British accent. I'm not saying that you need to get a British accent, but Joshua Bassett has this sense of confidence and this sense of, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing in the characters that he plays. I mean, obviously, in High School Musical, the series, Ricky is far from Angel. But I really think that Joshua Bassett would make a really good Angel by bringing something new and updating the character instead of being a one-off character to focus on because he's got pretty wings. Playing Jubilee would be Nicole Kang, and if you don't know who Nicole Kang is, all I need to say is watch Batwoman, because the way that she brings Mary to life is probably some of the best character development in the history of CW. She plays characters that are, again, the heart of the team, but she's not afraid to speak her mind. I really feel like that's what Jubilee needs to be part of the team. There's always a sense with Jubilee that, she has a cool power, she can shoot fireworks from her hands, but I feel as though that Marvel needs to focus on the personalities instead of the powers, and that's exactly what Nicole Kang would be there for to do. Finally, playing the villain would be Giancarlo Esposito as Magneto. I really feel as though Giancarlo Esposito plays some of the greatest villains in TV history. I mean, even just watching him in Mandalorian and Breaking Bad, he has some of the best scenes. The format. So, the problem with team films is the fact that you never get a lot of time with each members of the team. The reason why Avengers works so well is because that there are different movies spanning off when it comes to the different team members, which means that you have time to focus on characters that you like, and if you want to, you can miss out characters that you aren't really a fan of. So, with that being said, I feel as though the X-Men shouldn't really start off with having a film. Instead, I think they should start off with having a Disney Plus series focusing on each character and focusing on these kids or teenagers being drafted into a mutant war where society is shunning them, but I feel as though that it would make them grow into a team. The reason why characters shone in the X-Men animated series, Wolverine and the X-Men, and X-Men Evolution is because we had different episodes linked to them, and then it all came together in a perfect form of entertainment instead of focusing on one character and make everyone follow him. I'm sure as well that, making a series is a surefire way to get them ready for a feature-length film. If you're familiar with the characters, then you're more likely to have an affinity with them if anything does happen. Like if Jean gets infected by the Phoenix, or if the X-Men disband, or if there is a mutant cure. If there's one thing I will say when making the new X-Men in the MCU, it's leave Wolverine out of it. Wolverine's had his time, and Wolverine's had his chance in the spotlight, and Hugh Jackman did an amazing job when bringing him to life, but I feel like Hugh Jackman did it. It doesn't need to be done again. There's no casting Keanu Reeves, no casting Taron Egerton, and there's no casting Scott Eastwood. Literally leave Wolverine alone and leave him to rest. Instead, what you can do is focus on Cyclops, like I said before, and how each of the other team members react to each other. Shows like Umbrella Academy have displayed this perfectly, as we had time to see how each of these siblings and each of these teammates gel or don't gel together, and I feel as though that's what the X-Men is missing. Yes, they are child soldiers, but at the same time, they are children in a war, and they are also in a boarding school where they spend a lot of time with each other. If there's one thing that the X-Men are known for being, it's an allegory for racism, sexism, and homophobia. However, the X-Men films that have come before have kind of made it a little bit unrealistic by making it outright discussed instead of a hidden bias. I think that as much as it's critically panned, Dark Phoenix did it better than any other film because of the fact that they were heroes, but at the same time there was always a ticking clock to when they were hated again, and I really feel like the film played on that well. There's a scene in X-Men's bit in the comic Marvels where it shows the team and the only thing you can see is Scott's red visor. I think, humans fear what they don't know, and I feel as though you could really play it into that, and the New Mutants did horror, and I feel as though that you could really play it on that horror aspect of the X-Men. I mean, there's a whole lot of body horror with Deadpool and Marrow and Angel. I mean, there's literally things sprouting from their skin, so you could really play up that horror motif. Another thing I'll say is stop trying to break up the team every other movie. The greatest thing that X-Men First Class did is that they had time to be a team, they had time to work together, and they had time to play to their strengths. The worst thing that the X-Men films do is that they try and break up the team or they try and explode the Xavier Mansion. Just, there's needs to be a sense of stability with the superheroes if they get anything done. Also, show the X-Men actually saving people. There's superheroes, they're not just world-ending human nukes. They're actually there to save people as well and enforce some confidence into humans that mutants are a good thing. There's too many, as I call them, world enders that happen in the MCU. It's not just like what Spider-Man Homecoming did. They can't just arrest robbers or they can't, stop a drug deal. It always has to be stopping an alien invasion from coming to Earth or stopping a robotic invasion from coming to Earth. Sometimes it's okay to slow down and show the X-Men being representatives instead of human weapons. The last thing I'll say is the costumes. I know there was the throwaway line of, what do you prefer, yellow spandex? But we're at a time where if the Scarlet Witch can have her comic book accurate costume, then the X-Men can wear their comic book accurate costumes. The yellow and black suits, I'm an honest sucker for them. They did them really good in X-Men First Class, but I feel as though that don't shy away from the comic book wackiness. It's okay to be a little unrealistic sometimes. These are bright and powerful mutants that the boring ones have knives sprouting from their hands, and the most interesting ones can literally manipulate reality. So what I will say is, if you want to have a representation of the LGBTQ, then they need to be powerful, they need to be outgoing, they need to state their statement. And the rise of RuPaul's Drag Race, it's a sense of here I am, instead of we need to stay hidden and we need to stay in black leather, because as Cyclops says, frankly, the black leather is making a lot of people uncomfortable. And that's how I'd bring the X-Men into the MCU. If you agree with me, leave a like and comment down who's your favourite X-Man. But I'll be back next week when I talk about something that I enjoy. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. I've been Troy Harrison. You've been amazing. I'll see you next week.